So, ni hao. Xiao asked me to talk about the Starbucks case. I know everyone's very interested in that, and that's the case where it was either DoorDash or an Uber driver went to a Starbucks to pick up a delivery, and he sustained burns. He burned his groin and that part of his body, and a jury in Los Angeles at the Santa Monica Superior Court awarded him $50 million. And it's going to be a little bit more than that with interest and attorney's fees, and I'll explain why. But there's been so much attention on this in the media, right? It's been all over CNN. It's been in all the legal journals. Everyone's talking about, how can a burn result in a $50 million case, right? I mean, that number just seems so high. But when you really know about the case and when you really know what happened, at least to me, I don't think $50 million was too much at all. In fact, it was far under what the attorneys asked for. So I actually have a lot of perspective on this because the lawyer who handled the case is my former law partner and a really close friend of mine, Michael Parker. So this is the real story, just because, again, it's all over the news. Everyone's talking about it. The real story is this. The DoorDash driver was 25 years old, and he pulls up to a Starbucks to take delivery of hot coffees for his customers. And I think it's actually going to be really helpful to show you just with demonstratives. So the way it's supposed to work is when you go to Starbucks and you're taking out a big order, they give you these trays, right? And the baristas, they're trained to take the hot coffee and put it really hard like that into the tray. And when it's that hard into the tray, it's very secure. I mean, look, I'm throwing it, if I turn it upside down, nothing will happen. It's really secure. But if it's not secure and the barista only puts it on a little bit, imagine being in a car, taking it, hot coffee will spill all over you, which is exactly what happened. So this guy, just doing his job, goes to the Starbucks, drives up to the window. He orders 3 cups of coffee. 2 of the cups were placed in the right way. 1 of them was not. The barista only put it in a little bit. He went to take the tray, and literally just like that, what I just showed, because the cup wasn't in all the way, it spilled all over his groin. And when I say groin, his male parts. And it caused severe 3rd-degree burns. In fact, immediately after the spill, he was in the hospital in an ICU, an intensive care unit, burn unit, for literally 2 weeks. And they had to do, they had to stick catheters in him. He has permanent scarring on his, that part of his body. He can't get an erection without help. And in fact, he can't even, there are over-the-counter supplements to help people, like men get erections, like Viagra, Cialis. He can't even take that. That doesn't even work because the scarring is so jarring and it's so disfigured, and the way it looks is so permanently disfigured that it caused him PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, where none of those neurological, supplements that are supposed to help you get an erection, they don't even work. So permanent scarring, can't get an erection, and every time he goes to urinate, he either can't urinate or he needs assistance. So when you hear, and by the way, over the course of 5 years, he had 12 surgeries to try to make that better. So when I hear that, and everyone, $50 million, how did that happen? That's so much money. Can you believe it was $50 million for a burn? If somebody offered me, if somebody brought me a suitcase with $1 million and said, Kevin, I'm going to give you this suitcase, but for 1 year, that part of your body is going to have significant scarring. It's going to look disfigured. You can't get an erection, and every time you pee, if you even can pee, urinate, it's going to cause you extreme pain. Would I take that suitcase and say thank you? Absolutely. I can't even think of an amount of money that I would take to go through that. Now he was 25 years old, so I wouldn't take that suitcase for $1 million for 1 year, let alone, if he's got 50 more years, if he lives beyond 75. It's easy to see, I think, when you really know about what happened and when you know the true story, why the jury awarded $50 million. And they actually asked for $120 million. based on that number that I just, based on hearing the real damages and hearing how traumatic it was. And it's beyond the physical injuries. During trial, when he was on the stand, he actually had to take a break and ran out of the courtroom and threw up because just talking about it was so traumatizing to him, because he had ex-girlfriends testify at trial that when they were gonna, be intimate with each other, they saw his scarring and his damage, and they freaked out because of how disfigured it looked. And that image now, that experience is with him forever. That's, it's humiliating, it's embarrassing, but it's stressful that, he's living with that anxiety and that fear for the rest of his life. So I get, hearing the real story and the damage that it did to this poor guy, $50 million, I think, is far under what the case, it's less than what they asked for, and it is not an oversized verdict that people, I think, should be questioning. I think when you know the real story, it's very justified.